Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence has described calls for the Minister Angie Motshekga's resignation as opportunistic. Yesterday, Parliament held a special sitting during which the deaths of 14 South African soldiers in the DRC was debated. The soldiers were killed in fighting between the M23 rebels and the Congolese army in the eastern DRC town of Goma. Several political parties are demanding that Motshekga steps down. The committee's chairperson, Dakota Ligwete, says the soldiers were deployed to the DRC long before Motshekga became the defense minister.
She's only less than 6 months in office after being appointed by the president. When she was appointed, the ordeal in the Eastern DRC was already on, and it would be very unfair and very unfortunate for calling for a resignation at such an early point of the case. And we would like any political party to get to their senses and understand the sense of the occasion. Where we are now, we are mourning the death of 14 of our soldiers. There is no need for any political party to dance on the souls of our fallen soldiers or even use this for political mileage.
The City of Johannesburg Emergency Services have urged motorists to exercise caution as the roads remain slippery following overnight rainfall. EMS spokesperson Robert Mohlahlana says they will remain on alert for any possible incidents.
Most roads are wet and slippery. Extend the safe following distance. Our residents in our low-lying areas to continue to avoid crossing river streams while conducting daily activities. From our side, as the City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services, we still remain on high alert together with our specialized teams.
And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump says if Hamas does not release the remaining hostages in Gaza by noon on Saturday, Israel should cancel the ceasefire. He says it's time for the hostage situation to end.
I just think it's time to either you release everybody. They're not going to be alive right now. Based on what I saw over the last 2 days, they're not going to be alive for long. Saturday at 12 o'clock, and after that, it's going to be a different ballgame. Hamas will find out what I mean.
Recapping the top story, Electricity and Energy Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa has given the assurance that government is taking steps to eliminate load reduction nationwide. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
I'm in tourism. I'm running a guest house here. When I switched over to OUTsurance, it was very simple and convenient. I used the savings to subsidize my solar installations. Switching to OUTsurance was one of the best decisions I made insurance-wise, yes.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. Masandawana want to display their elite status with a graduation letter to the last 8. However, lower division team, Mpeni Home Defenders, are seeking to make history and join the league of giant killers. This is the Nedbank Cup Last 16. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Mpeni Home Defenders on Sunday, 16 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
There's Mr. Mandela, Mr. Nelson Mandela, a free man taking his first steps into a new South Africa. Mrs. Winnie Mandela next to him, waving to the crowds. Hand in hand, they leave the Victor Verster prison.
Friends, comrades, and fellow South Africans, I greet you all in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom for all. I stand here before you not as a prophet but as a humble servant of you, the people. Your tireless and heroic sacrifices have made it possible for me to be here today. I therefore place the remaining years of my life in your hands.
Oh, Baba Mandela, esobukwe, esizulu. Yo, mama, siyanikhumbula. Noke, lapho nihlezi khona. Yo, mama. Can you believe it? It's been 35 years to the day that Nelson Mandela was released from prison. That is the voice of Clarence Cater on the 11th of February there, announcing that release of the former president. And of course, Madiba addressing that large crowd outside the Cape Town City Hall later that evening. And it marked, it took place 27 years that he had spent on Robben Island. So, yeah, what a powerful day to walk down memory lane. What a powerful day from our historical records. It's 9:09. Welcome to The Talking Point. I'm Cathy Mohlahlana. Pleasure to be with you on the show, as always, as we lead conversations that move us. I'll be with you until midday. We'll start off with the open line, your national roundtable. And of course, I will be more than happy to put you on air to raise whatever matter of national interest you want to put. Of course, there's been a lot unfolding. Just coming out of the weekend into this week. And I see overnight, if you're on social media, if you saw the social media storm, what shall we call it? Keeping up with the Zoomers. Sorry, I meant keeping up with the MK party, right? The president of the MK party having to call his fellow party member into line, party MP, who also happens to be his daughter, who, of course, has made all sorts of egregious comments about the party Secretary General, Floyd Chivambu. So we'll see how far that's willing to go. It seems like the ultimatum has been issued: apologize or face being kicked out of the party. Will it actually go that far? We know that the president of the party, Jacob Zuma, ultimately has the final say on all things as per the Constitution. So if she does not apologize, yes, likely to undergo a disciplinary process, but he can decide that she can get kicked out without that disciplinary process. So we'll have to wait and see how that particular issue unfolds. And of course, this morning then, we have better clarity in terms of the court action that the DA has long been threatening over the Expropriation Act. We now know what they have said in their court papers. They're challenging the Expropriation Act of 2025 on both substantive and procedural grounds. And, just on the substantive grounds, part of what they're looking at there is really whether or not this legislation is constitutional. They say that it's vague, it's contradictory in places. But I guess what really struck me was how there's also a description of the act having echoes of laws that allowed the apartheid government to forcibly remove communities from their land, quote unquote, from the court papers, often with inadequate compensation or none at all. That's what the DA is saying, that it has echoes of some of the forced removals. And there are a couple of things that we can think about here. On the one hand, of course, is that we've had the announcement around these envoys that are going to be going to different parts of the world, including Washington, right, to state South Africa's position, number one, on a number of issues. Number two, to clarify the fear-mongering, the hysteria, in particular around the Expropriation Act, the fears that it will lead to large-scale land grabs, etc., etc. We all know what the likes of AfriForum have been saying by now, and the narrative that has been painted. So among those that will be sent to different parts of the envoy, one imagines will also be DA ministers, right? Because they're part of the government of unity. But at this point, I think we could well say the government of disunity, right? So they will have to form part of these envoys to convince the rest of the world that the Expropriation Act is not much to be worried about. While in the same breath, they're challenging in court and likening it to laws that resulted in forced removals and dispossessions for millions of South Africans in this country. Just last week on this show, we were talking about the 70th commemoration of the forced removals in Sophia Town, and how those removals have wreaked absolute havoc on those people's lives, that even today they're still living with the pain of what happened. They have lost out on those properties. They're not going to ever get them back, at least by the looks of things. They're not ever going to get that land back. And the DA is comparing the Expropriation Act of 2025, which is embedded with process, which is embedded with protections. And they're saying that it is similar, or it has echoes of what happened then. Really? Can we really say that? If you think about the heart-wrenching writings of an individual like Sol Plaatje, and really giving a face and words to what dispossession in this country did to so many millions of black South Africans, can we really say that this Expropriation Act is that? Is that a comparison really one fair to make? And number two, given the fact that this is the view that the DA holds, how then are its ministers going to be able to defend or explain the Expropriation Act to the likes of Donald Trump and his administration? How is this going to work? How can these contradictions coexist? Can they even coexist? Particularly given this moment that we're in as a country. How is this going to work? How do you see it unfolding? The other grounds, of course, that they're challenging it on is the procedural grounds. They're arguing that 5 of the provinces that voted did not have a mandate to actually vote with regard to the Expropriation Act. So that's the case that they've put before the Western Cape High Court. But yeah, I wonder what you make of it all. But for me, the biggest one here is around that contradiction. How are these ministers going to legitimately be part of envoys that are supposed to be calming fears when in fact the party that they belong to carries the very same anxieties and fears around the Expropriation Act? I'll take your calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. That's for your WhatsApp voice notes and text messages, 0614-104-107. And of course, there was that debate that took place in Parliament yesterday over our soldiers in the DRC. You would have seen many political parties are now calling for the defense minister's head. Should she go or must she stay? That's part of the conversation that we can have. All of that coming up on the other side of this break.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than staring into your fridge, convinced there's nothing to eat, with hopes that something new magically appears. Only to end up ordering the same meal you had yesterday. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
All right, let me start off in Polokwane this morning. Bishop Makubo, good morning.
Sis Cathy, good morning, good morning. I want to comment, actually, to bring my issue on the table on the issue of the Freedom Front Plus, especially the stance that they are taking and AfriForum, what is taking place actually. No, Sis Cathy, I just want to bring to your attention actually the type of racism and oppression that is still here in South Africa, especially from the whites. I won't be able, not all the whites, but from some of the whites. I bought a farm in Polokwane for 1.2 million. I experienced racism, intimidation like nobody's business. And as I'm talking to you, the 1.2 million went to the drain. The farm has not been given to me. I've been taken to court. White judges rule against me. And I've received a serious intimidation from white people who comes and park their tow trucks, big trucks next to the gate. I remember the other time they came and dumped what you call this rubbish there by the gate, and asked one lady, why are you doing this? Said, no, this is a dumping area. And not only that, but a lot of serious of risk. So when I see what is happening, actually, I get angry because I know that what they are saying, the stance that black people are land grabbers. There's no land that we are grabbing. There are some people
So Bishop Makubo, who did you buy the property from?
From the white lady, from the Potter's family.
Okay.
Yes,
and then what happened? Because after you bought it, then there should have been the transfers happening.
Yes, that's how now all this white manipulation over a black person started. Because remember, even the what you call the conveniencers are white. So it just started from there to here to there. It got worse and worse, when they are supposed to give you your title deed, then you are in court, then suddenly...
But I don't understand why you are in court. On what grounds are you in court?
You are in court because the white people don't want to give the land to you. They said you took long to pay the 1.2 million, so then we are taking you to court. We are cancelling the contract. Then said, give me back my money. Said, your money has been given to her. There's a lot of drama, a lot. And not only that, but even the white community reacting towards you as a black person who bought a farm amongst white people. Then you are now not included in their WhatsApp group. Then suddenly you find that there are meetings on the corners. There's a lot that is happening. So when I saw this Trump issue, it actually boiled in me that what is it AfriForum and other groups, what they are doing actually, there's nothing like that. There are no black people who are land grabbers. There are black people who can buy farms for the purpose of development and developing their lives and continuing. But even the water
rights
board, the water board here, they've cut pipes for me. Literally, when you woke up in the morning, you go to a farm, you find that the pipes have been cut. They dig there. Then the ESCOM.
So Bishop Makhubo, effectively, you just felt that you were frustrated. You were being frustrated
by white
to let go of the farm because you're not part of the community.
Yes, to be part of the community, and them running. In their WhatsApp group, they said EFF has come to take the land. When they saw me developing there during the process of buying. They said, no, there's EFF coming. I'm not even part of EFF. I'm not even a member of EFF. But I'm just trying to bring and draw a picture of what is happening on the ground.
Okay. Okay.
Of which we this is the type of suffering. Even the white judge in Polokwane High Court, the way she judged the issue, she just pushed it aside, and it was a dramatic issue that she couldn't listen to anybody. And worst part, she even took some of the things which were in the farm. She said, no, the lady has a right to go and sell those things that you have put in the farm. It's just frustration of white people, oppression over a black person who tried to develop himself.
All right, Bishop Makhubo, I've heard you. He's out in Polokwane, and obviously, I think there are some, nuances to the story that one would need to get clarity on in terms of the actual purchase of the farm that he was involved in. But, those matters notwithstanding, there is, of course, once you have bought the property, then being part of the community, whether or not you feel welcomed, right? Whether or not this is a community that is open to you integrating yourself within it. And that's part of what he's pointing to, that the frustration was beyond just whatever legalities or legal issues he was facing. He also got a sense from the extended community that he was not welcome. Yeah, it sounds like a terrible experience that you've been through, Bishop Makhubo. But like I said, there are other matters that I would want clarity on. Yanga, you're in Rosebank. Good morning.
Hi, Cathy.
Yanga, great to hear from you. Long time.
Yes. No, I'm late. I wanted to say Happy New Year, but let me say Happy Valentine's Day in advance.
All right, Yanga, okay, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, on a serious note, Katie, we cannot continue like this, I mean, you have a group of people, putting fear among a section of our society, and I don't blame white Afrikaner people, because they are told lies by this AfriForum and Democratic Alliance that your farm are gonna be taken. I mean, those farmers have worked hard for those farms, and if now they are told that their farm are going to be taken, obviously they will react, and the DA and AfriForum knows very well that there's nothing like there will be no farm seized aus Katie. But they continue,
Younger, according to their farm papers, according to their court papers, that's not what they believe.
Sure. I mean, aus Katie, it is upset. And imagine, aus Katie, same as the ballot bill, I will be angry if someone tells me that isiXhosa is, there's a campaign to destroy isiXhosa. But if I don't know which bill they are reading, because on the ballot bill, it says nothing about getting rid of Africans. It talks about admission policy to say there's no child in South Africa that must not be admitted based on their language policy. It says nothing about destroying Africans. And an organization that can't believe that our kids can learn in the same class. They say we must have Setswana schools, Sesotho schools, siXhosa schools, because we must preserve their culture. I mean, what nonsense is that, us kids?
Okay, Younger in Rosebank, let's leave it there. And if one sees it in its full context, right, it's about that call for recognition, right, that they're calling for, that call for broader recognition, that call for self-determination that the likes of AfroForum want to see. That is why some of the arguments that they make take the kind of pattern or take the kind of shape that they do. So we shouldn't just see it in the context of one thing, but once you begin to connect all of the dots, then you see really what it is that they're going for. All right, let me take a couple of your WhatsApp voice notes and then it'll lead us into the 9:30 news headlines. I'm still taking your calls. It is your National Roundtable. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107.
Good morning. In the headlines, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence says South Africa's deployment of its soldiers to the DRC aligns with the country's foreign policy. Yesterday, Parliament held a special sitting during which the deaths of 14 South African soldiers in the DRC was debated. Electricity and Energy Minister Hosience Ramogopa has given the assurance that government is taking steps to eliminate load reduction nationwide. And the City of Johannesburg Emergency Services have urged motorists to exercise caution as the roads remain slippery following overnight rainfall. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Ausikiti. Shame, I don't feel sorry for Floyd. Floyd, I don't feel sorry for you. If you sell your own brother, even the buyer will not trust you. So I don't feel sorry for you.
Hi, Cathy. Hi, SAFM listeners. Regarding the Keeping Up with the Zumas story, Personally, I wouldn't read too much meaning into it. Considering how wily and crafty Jacob Zuma is, I won't be surprised if this is kind of like a ploy or a ruse to make people feel that in MKP, no one is above the law, including my daughter. I don't think we should read too much meaning to it. That's just my conspiracy theory. Deji, Cape Town, thank you.
Morning, Sisiketi. Sisiketi, AfriForum must provide the list of farms which were forcibly taken by the government. And they must also provide the list or the statistics of the farm killings of the white farmers, plus the statistics, list of black workers who were killed in those farms, mistaken for baboons and wild pigs. And I want to know what the remedy they sought from America. What were they looking for? If it is not this, what we have today on the table. Norman from Brixton.
All right, thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. It is still the National Roundtable, taking your calls on 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. Let me go to Gianni. Is it lowered or?
Yes, Cathy, it's lowered.
Okay, all right. Good morning, lowered.
Good morning, Cathy, and all greetings protocols observed. Yes, Cathy, I want to commend your producers for having the segment called Municipal Watch in your program on every Thursday. So today I want to speak about corruption in our municipalities that has been deviling our municipalities for the longest of time and which is going on unabated. In Limpopo, there is a municipality called Mopane district municipality. And then what I can say is that during December, last year December, corruption has been uncovered within that municipality regarding the borehole drilling tender system, of which it amounted to millions of rand. In this instance, Casey, the villages, and then most of them were suffering from the lack of basic need, which is water. We were supposed to be serviced with boreholes within our communities, but what happened is that there were shortcomings in regard to the servicing of the boreholes in our communities. So what I want to emphasize this morning is that since there is corruption which has been uncovered or unearthed in that municipality, and the CFO of the municipality has been placed on precautionary suspension to that regard, it means everyone involved, either officials and politicians who are involved in these corrupt activities, which subsequently deprive the communities of their basic needs, it has to be uncovered, and everyone involved must be brought to book and be prosecuted.
So, Lord, just to understand, was it a tender that was issued for boreholes
Yes.
to be put up at these? Then that did not happen.
Correct. Yes. Let me give you a practical example from my own village, Casey. Instead of the municipality or the service providers through the municipality connecting the pipes from the boreholes to the reservoir, and then the village has to be provided with water, they short-changed the system in the sense that they only put two JoJo tanks next to the borehole. So that is part of the corruption that is happening because instead of doing the right thing of channeling the connection of pipes to the reservoir so that the village can be provided with water, they should change the system so that they will corrupt the system.
Okay.
And it's not only my village. I'm sure this has been happening almost every place where water was supposed to be. to provide that to the communities. Yes, Cathy.
All right, all right, Lord. Here's what I'm going to do. I'll put you through back to Lebo, so that you can give us the details that you have and what you know about the situation there. And maybe in the coming weeks, we'll be able to focus on the Mopani District Municipality and try to understand what exactly has happened with that issue. Ozzy, you're in Mthatha. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy.
Yes, Ozzy.
Cathy, I just want to make a comment to get this DA. I think the DAs, they are cowards. They are cowards because they do not know which side of the fence they are in. At least AfriForum, we know where they stand. You know, they are completely against black development, against this government. But I'm worried about DA, you know, because it does not make sense on the other side. In 1 minute, you know, they look like they want the best interest of this country. On the other side, they're against. They cannot be a better South African without readdressing certain things of the past. And the government is trying to do it. And I'm saying to DA, they need to be careful and they need to be thankful and they need to appreciate how this government is treating them. It doesn't happen anywhere else in Africa. So, but it seems
what do you mean?
pushing.
What do you mean by that, Ozzy? When you say they need to appreciate how this government is treating them?
They need to appreciate that there is at least law. The rule of law works in South Africa. There is freedom of speech. But at the same time, Katie, the law is made for people. So the will of the people speaks. I mean, this process went through Parliament. It went through the prescribed process. But I do not understand why they keep pushing. You know, they keep pushing because it's something that they do not like. What about? But what if there are other issues which they like, and which they do not fight against? But anything that is against the development of black people, you know, there's so much resistance from there. So that's what I mean to say, you know, at least we have freedom of speech. We can use the courts. We have those things, but they shouldn't push so much, Cathy, because the reality is black people need the land issue to be addressed. And the government is trying to put up laws to try and find common ways to address this issue, but they don't seem to be interested. At least AfriForum, we now know they don't like this country. They hate this country, you know, but DA, it's very dangerous. You know, they say an undecided mind is a very dangerous mind because right now we don't know which fields they are playing. You know, so for me is government, the president should not include them in that convoy to the USA. In fact, I don't even know why we are going there to explain something that we have not done.
Yeah.
You know? So to me, the president must not include DA because they are also part of the problem, Katie. Remember, they went there about 3 years ago also. They went there, they went to the USA, DA themselves. You know, so they are part of the problem.
Yeah, but my understanding of their trip to the US was more around positioning themselves as a political party.
Yeah, but Kate, they spoke on issues that has to do with the South African government as well. So this issue of AfriForum is not just AfriForum, Katie. They somehow think that if they go to the international community, they're going to have more support.
Mm.
And every time when they go out, they always bad mouth about this country, Katie.
Okay.
You know, some of us, we love this country and we are willing to fight for this country. But these people must be careful. They shouldn't push things so hard. We are all trying our level best. But they are really, really very confused, and I'm very worried about them.
Also, in Mthatha, we'll leave it there. Was it Robert yesterday who described the DA as a snake in the grass? He said he had voted for them last year, but he's no longer going to be voting for them because he feels like they're a snake in the grass and they're selling out. I wonder if that's similar to what Ozzy's saying. Of course, that will largely depend on the interest. Look, the DA has the right to challenge the legislation, right? And like I said earlier, it's both on substantive and procedural matters. It's not just the fact that they feel it's flawed constitutionally. They also think the process that was followed was irregular, that it has to be reviewed in its entirety. Dumisang, you're in Taung. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy.
Yes.
Yes, Cathy, this is my cry about Northern Cape School. My daughter is in Northern Cape High School. She's in high school in Northern Cape. So the department, since last week, children they go to school, they come back from school because they get us closed. The reason when we ask the reason because the Department of Education didn't pay money of Section 21 in the NSNP money. There is no food to give the children, there is no stationery, and there is no money. That's Section 21 to maintain school. So I'm asking for the department to pay money so that the children can go to school. Time is going.
Dumisang, is your child going to a no-fee school, or are they? Okay. Is it a public school? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And as far as you know, is it just the school that has been affected?
No, all the school in Pokwan municipality.
Okay. All right. At least that gives us a good starting point. So out in Pokwane municipality, since last week, the learners, as you're saying, have not been going to school.
Yes.
Okay.
They go to school, they get a clue, they come back. Every day they come back.
What time do they come back?
They go to school in the morning, 6:30, but past 8 they're home.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm worried. What about the matriculars? What about the grade 12? Time is going, Cathy. Northern Cape Education, please pay the money because there is not even the teachers. The teachers doesn't have enough equipment, education equipment to teach.
Okay. All right, Dumisang. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll follow up with the Education Department nationally, but we'll also find out what's happening from the Provincial Education Department. You heard Dumisang there. The schools are saying the department has not paid for food and for stationery, so no learning can take place. That's why they're sending the kids back every morning since last week. Vuyiswa, you're in Parktown North. Good morning, Vuyiswa.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good,
Thanks
go
for
it.
My call.
Yes.
Psychology teaches that they are mentally disturbed people in high offices. I'm referring to Trump and Elon Musk. When we arrive at a point where we diagnose bipolar or mental illness, because you can see the way they behave. It's not normal. There's something that's wrong. Psychology teaches of women in high heels and men in suits that are not normal, but in high offices. I know quite a number of people that suffer from that, but they cannot come out and say it unless they are into drugs.
So for me, I mean, I'm not an expert on those things, psychology, and I think obviously, everybody is making all of these assumptions around what is the mental state, mental capacity of both these men. You've had all of these different diagnoses, and look, to some extent, I think that in doing that, it almost gives a way out for the behavior, right?
No, because we are giving them so much attention. We should be talking about other things. Because with the white community in South Africa that Trump and Elon Musk are protecting or defending, unless and until we reach a time when, if you go to Germany and Berlin and all those places where Holocaust happened, it is the younger generation that confronted their parents, that 6 million people, over 6 million people that got massacred. Where were you? They confronted their grandmothers. and their parents who were there when these things happened. Unless and until there arises a white group that will actually confront their parents of what they did to us. Because this whole thing of running to the U.S. and reporting things that are not happening, for me alone, it's illness. They are taking ill, or Trump himself is taking ill, and Elon Musk, because they are supposed to confront themselves for what they did. What they did to our ancestors, taking our land and all those things. Anyway, I'm happy because Kunu is still there for me. When I go home in Kunu, I have that home. But I know that there are people who don't have it. People that they were actually totally removed from their land. In Limpopo recently it happened, Mekwa for mining, and you cry seeing that old woman actually making beer to make the ancestors aware that they've been removed. They are going to a 4-room house, not far from Polokwane. So to me, it's like we need white people who stand up for the truth, because like as it is right now, and there's nothing that we can talk and talk. White people, racism is in their nature. Hatred is what they believe. Poison, they are poisoned everything. And this religion, the Bible, because they say this land they were given by God, so which they bring into religion into these whole things.
Okay.
What about us? What about us? Who are we? Why are we here? It's not a mistake that God put us here. And then we must address our fears, because I hear people crying as if their ancestors were supported by America.
Okay, Voiso, in Parktown North, we'll leave it there. And I think obviously the reference to the use of the Bible is more in line with what the apartheid government did, right, to justify some of its behaviors. And Voiso is right when she says that it is going to take other white people calling out the racists, equally so, in order to build the society that we want to see, because I genuinely believe that you don't have all white people that are racist. You don't have all Afrikaner people that are racist. But if people stay quiet, then it creates this perception, right, of the fact that, well, if you're silent, then maybe you agree. And we need more of those voices coming out to say, actually, we don't agree. And I've seen a lot of that on social media, where people have been intentionally, creating content that builds a picture of the other side of what South Africa looks like, of a diverse country. And I think that's part of who we are as a nation, when we're not drawn down by all of these voices and the forces that seek to divide us.
The Northwest Legislature Portfolio Committee on Community Safety and Transport Management, chaired by Honorable Freddy Sonakile, will host public hearings on Marine Oil Pollution Bill on the 14th February 2025 at Groot Mariko Community Hall in Ngakamudiri Molema District, Mogopa Community Hall near Venterstop in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, Utlanang Community Hall at Christiana in Dr. Ruth Somuti Mompati, and Sutelong Community Hall in Bojanala District. All public hearings start at 10.
February may be a short month, but with Outsurance, your car insurance savings could be big. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand and make that 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you win. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer, NFSP, T's and C's online.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
All right, we continue the conversation on the talking point. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. Let me go to Sekhatli in Mangweng. Good morning, Sekhatli.
Kitty, I'm having this problem of the RDP distribution. I mean, so many people, remember I'm from this side of Mangweng, so many people from this side of Mangwin, since I applied for RDP houses, including myself, though now I don't think I qualify. So we since applied long time, then we've never, and most of the people who applied with me, they've never given those RDPs. When I went to check or to investigate what is happening, they told me that the problem is the Mangwen site is no longer having any other open land where they can give the RDP to, and then they can build RDPs. And then when I asked, is it difficult to build individuals in their own stands, they said, unfortunately, that program of giving out those RDPs, it's a bulk program. That means that they have to build maybe 200 days ago or 300 days ago, not for individual, unless there is a special need for that particular individual. So then I asked them again, look at the other side of 73, extension 74 as you go towards the show. So the people are already being given the RDP houses there. So, and then when I ask, can we amalgamate those people who are at least coming from Mangwen side, willing either to reside that side if you have to follow the sequence of who registered after who or so. Then they said, no, unfortunately, if you registered at the side of Mangwen, you registered coming from the side of Mangwen, then we'll just wait.
So Sekhatli, what is the actual problem?
The actual problem is that the people in the side of Mangwen and people who registered that side, they are not going to get RDPs because there is no open land that they can build RDPs.
I see.
So that's the problem. So then I would like to ask the councillor, I'd like to ask also the premier to get a piece of land where they can assist those people because they're still sitting with the application. And when I investigated, they said the problem is there is no land. But if I check the land towards coming to Dalmada there used to be a place called Ramatlodi Park. It was under development. I don't know exactly what happened in the 2006 next to Mamahulede. Why they don't just buy that land and then build those RTP for those people?
Okay.
Because some of them, yes, they are in need. They really need those houses. And it's very painful when you check the other side of the Seshewo, the other side of Leboa Home, there is an allocation of RDPs. And then these other people, they cannot because of the land. Buy the land and help the people.
Sekhatli, you've made the point. Sekhatli out in Mangweng. Yeah, quite an interesting issue to look at there when it comes to the distribution and the building of RDP houses. Charlie, you're in Koffiefontein. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy.
Yes, Charlie.
Yes, remember last week when I said that if this government was with anything, the guys of AfriForum, all these right-wing people, they would be in court right now. So now things have backfired for them. They thought for now, their messiah, Elon Musk, is somehow going to punish us as the black people of this country, the ANC, because they quit every black person of the ANC and MK party and EFF, irrespective of, unless you sing their praises, then you say you're good black. But now, they've got egg on their faces. What they thought Trump was going to do, Trump gave them an olive branch saying, no man, Akiru guys said you are being genocided against. Your land is being stolen, you are being killed at an astronomical rate and whatnot. Now they're backtracking. They are saying, no, we are not going to leave South Africa. We're indigenous to this country. This is now coming from a European descent. This is me, the same as me saying I'm indigenous to Asia because my family lives there for 100 years. Now, the only reason, Cathy, why they will never dream of not leaving South Africa is because there is no white privilege anywhere else in the world like white privilege in South Africa. Whites in the USA, you get white people who are doing two jobs to get by. You'll never find that in South Africa.
Yeah,
can
Charlie,
go
I
to-
don't
to-
think that's true. That's not true.
Which two white people are doing 2 jobs in South Africa? There's no such name.
No, that's
I'm
not
te-
true, Charlie. That's not
Uh,
true.
I'm telling you, Cathy. But coming back to my point now. Now we've got a right-wing organization which represents die-hard Afrikaners, white Afrikaners. They went and spread misinformation regarding our country. They got egg on their faces. They thought, oh no, we were going to be punished, only for them to find out, no, nothing is going to happen to us. Even the
Okay.
pep, yeah. Now,
Okay.
why my
Okay, Charlie, we're going to have to leave it there. I think you've made your point. Churchill in Mthatha, now's your chance. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy.
Good, go for it, Churchill.
Okay. Look, Cathy, I think if you could give me an opportunity to give Trump a free lecture, and it's not going to pay any tuition about the history of this country. I know he's a billionaire, but I'm offering him a free lecture because it would seem his reckless statements are not from an informed position. And even give him a free lecture about that country he's leading. Where are the aborigines of that country? We're not going to be like Australia, New Zealand, and all of them. But we're going to make sure that we interact with all groups in this country to make sure that we redress the imbalances of the past. But on a serious note, what do we take from this as black people? Let us take lessons and reposition ourselves. You cannot force yourself to be loved by somebody who doesn't love you. Trump is a racist, and that's it. He is not going to love us. We're going to try our best, but that's not going to happen. I'm very happy that this country now is with BRICS. And many countries, the BRICS is gaining momentum. You know, we can't force ourselves to be loved by somebody who doesn't love us. There are many white people who are not racist, who are in this country and in other parts of the world, who understand exactly the atrocities, that were committed by white people to us. And one other thing that I want us, I think the world should consider when they elect a leader, that person must actually be, done checks and balances by professionals. Remember what happened with Adolf Hitler? He put all the world into a Holocaust. We only found out at a later stage that, the upbringing, when he grew up, something went wrong with that chap. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. Otherwise, we're going to make all these hullabaloos and lamenting, but Trump is just not going to love us. Period.
Okay, Churchill in Mthatha, let's leave it there. And that brings us really to the conclusion of the open line. It is now 10 o'clock. Time for the latest news update.
In our top stories, Defence Committee defends deployment of its soldiers to the DRC, and Ramokgopa vows to end load reduction. Good morning. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence says South Africa's deployment of its soldiers to the DRC aligns with the country's foreign policy. Yesterday, Parliament held a special sitting during which the deaths of 14 South African soldiers in the DRC was debated. Their bodies are expected to be repatriated from the Ugandan capital, Kampala, on Thursday. EFF MP Natasha Ntlangwini condemned President Cyril Ramaphosa's authorization of the deployment. The committee's chairperson, Dakota Lehuate.
In terms of our foreign policy, we are for unity of Africa. But equally, why it's in our interest as a country to get stability in any part of our region is because we are a receiving nation of all people who runs away from wars in their country. You would know that in South Africa, if everything was to go tit for tat in the DRC, almost 1 million or 2 million of those people will end up in South Africa as refugees. And it's important for us to help the DRC to find peace.
Electricity and Energy Minister Hossein Ramokgopa has given the assurance that government is taking steps to eliminate load reduction nationwide. Although the country has experienced a significant number of days without rolling blackouts, some rural villages in Limpopo have electricity disruptions daily. Ramokgopa met with mayors of Limpopo municipalities in Polokwane yesterday. He says resources are being allocated to combat load reduction.
We are now fighting load reduction. It's on our radar, and we're summoning all the resources necessary to improve the capacity of the distribution and reticulation infrastructure to ensure that we address leakage, what we call illegal connection, but we formalize those who are consuming and wants to pay. We put them on the prepaid smart electricity platform that will be run directed by Eskom and municipalities.
Police are investigating a case of arson following the torching of a building at the Middle Drift Police Station outside Alice in the Eastern Cape. The building was set alight yesterday morning. Police spokesperson Sipoka Zimawisa says the damage to the building is worth more than 2 million rand.
According to the information, the detective building, SAPS documents and furniture were burnt down to the estimated value of more than 2 million. The circumstances surrounding the incident form part of the investigation. Police are calling upon anyone who can assist in the investigation to contact the nearby police station or alternatively report to the SAPS Crime Stop number 08600 10111.
The City of Johannesburg Emergency Services have urged motorists to exercise caution as the roads remain slippery following overnight rainfall. EMS spokesperson Robert Mohlahlana says they will remain on alert for any possible incidents.
Most roads are wet and slippery. Extend the safe following distance. Our residents in our low-lying areas to continue to avoid crossing river streams while conducting daily activities. From our side as the City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services, we still remain on high alert together with our specialized teams.
And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested cancelling the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal if all the hostages held in Gaza are not released by noon on Saturday. Trump's comments come after Hamas announced a delay in releasing the next batch of Israeli hostages until further notice. Hamas has accused Israel of breaking the agreement. In response, Israel has raised its state of military readiness around Gaza. Showan Bryce Peace reports.
Arab nations have rejected the Trump proposal seeking to resettle Palestinians permanently away from the devastated Gaza Strip, while he suggested from the Oval Office that he might stop aid to Egypt and Jordan were they not to accept refugees from Gaza. Arab nations have roundly rejected the idea, as did Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. Trump's due to meet with Jordan's King Abdullah II Tuesday, whose royal court earlier condemned what it referred to as attempts to annex land and displace the Palestinians. The US president now flirting with the idea of using US aid as leverage. He also said it would be up to Israel to make the final call on the ceasefire deal with Hamas.
Recapping the top story, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence says South Africa's deployment of its soldiers to the DRC aligns with the country's foreign policy. Yesterday, Parliament held a special sitting during which the deaths of 14 South African soldiers in the DRC was debated. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
In the Arena is a docu-series that takes an in-depth look at the life and career of the legendary tennis player Serena Williams, offering a behind-the-scenes glimpse into her journey, both on and off the court. It explores her rise to tennis dominance, challenges, and personal experiences. Do not miss out on a great story of incredible impact. Catch In the Arena on Saturdays at 3 p.m. on SABC3. Alternatively at 9 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturdays and Thursdays. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Mangaung Metro Municipality is hosting an investment summit to bring investment to Bloemfontein. The summit will take place on 19 and 20 February at the City Hall and aims to bring together different economic role players from across the country and abroad. To be part of the summit or for more info, call 073 184 8972 or send an email to summit@mangaung.co.za. Mangaung, at the heart of it all.
You'd think reheating leftovers would be quick, right? But somehow they're still cold. Back in they go, still cold. By the third time, you just eat them anyway. Well, you know what's faster than reheating leftovers? Getting your car covered online with Santam. It only takes 2 minutes to switch. Visit santam.co.za. Santam, this is freedom.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
7 after 10 o'clock, welcome to the second hour of The Talking Point as we lead conversations that move us. Today is a Tuesday, so at this hour we would generally be talking finance with Brian Hirsch. We will still be talking finance, but Brian is out for the day. That conversation will instead be with Dr. Frank Magwegwe, who is the Head of Financial Education at Nedbank, also a Senior Lecturer at Gibbs University. So we'll certainly then be having that conversation with him within the coming hour. So we'll talk about a range of issues, but mostly how to plan around that monthly budget, especially in the wake of all of these increasing costs that creep up on us and the never increasing salaries, right? You must have heard the report that Tulas was speaking about on the morning brief yesterday. In fact, he cited quite a number of them that speak to the fact that even though some people may have slightly more money in their pockets than they did before, they might be earning a bit more than they did before, their real buying power, the real buying power of South Africans is actually 40% less than what it was 5 to 10 years ago. Now, that really puts things into perspective. So we'll have part of that conversation with Dr. Magwegwe in a moment. Before we get to it, your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Good morning, Cathy Mohlahlana and your hardworking team of producers behind you. My name is Mpepimpereni from Limpopo, Mkumbani Village. I just want to take part on what happened to Floyd Shivambu by the daughter of the party leader. Cathy, Floyd will regret his move from the EFF. MK Party is a party of a certain ethnic group of people of South Africa. The idea of bringing other ethnic groups to leadership is to attract voters to vote for MK Party. Remember, Cathy, last year in November or December, somebody took mic from Shivambu whilst he was busy addressing the masses. Those who join MK Party who are not Zulus won't last as members. They are all on their way out. Thank you so much. I am Mpepimpereni, Limpopo Mkumbani Village.
Lumela Cathy Lekola. Cathy, appointment of ministers is not based on skills or credentials, not based on merit. It's the president's prerogative, special right to appoint the ministers. It means that he appoints them at will. So the person who has the skills, military skills, is the deputy. So the minister cannot look up to him for assistance or for advice. If she can do that, she will feel small, or she won't feel like she is his senior. That's the problem, you know. That is the problem. Lovely sister, good morning. Housing from Transmission.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. Good morning to SFM and listeners. You know, this thing about the DA and this Afri Forum issue and stuff, you know, I'm not a clever person, but I listen every day to SAFM because the topics that they brought out here it's very important for me. And now this is how I learn and continue to understand our history. But DA and SAF, AfriForum, stop running to other countries for support. Why can't you admit that there was wrongdoings to our people? Black, colored, whatever there is, man. Why are you holding on to something that's never gonna work? You just making people angry, and there will be separation and all those things because of you. Thanks, Cathy, Peter and George out.
Morning, House Cathy. It's Andrew from Woodbank, Nambi. I simply want to say, House Cathy, white people of South Africa, they are so lucky because they still have a chance to sit on the table and negotiate this, while we never had that chance when you go back to former 1913 Land Act and so forth. So today they just want to cause the confusion and all those sort of bad things by running to Trump and tell Trump among and so forth. So what we are saying is let us share. Equality is a must. At the end, we must be equal. Whoever who feels like being equal is a threat to him, she or he is free to leave South Africa. But they must make sure that they don't cause any trouble. They just live in peace. We'll also keep our South Africa in peace. Because causing, that's all I want to say. Thanks.
Good morning, Cathy and the production team. I would like to weigh in the deployment of Angie as a defense minister. I think it was not a wise move by President Ramaphosa to put her in the defense, because we need somebody who has the capacity to lead in the defense department. So you shouldn't have deployed Angie there for the sake of renewal. No. So I echo the same sentiments with those who say it's time for her to go. I thank you, Lotta Emonti.
Talking finance, making sense of your finance.
Well, let's get into our finance chat then for this morning. Dr. Frank Magwegwe is our guest, is the head of financial education at Nedbank and also senior lecturer at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. Dr. Magwegwe, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Kate, and thank you for having me on your show. A very good morning to your listeners. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to discuss with you such an important topic at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely. We really appreciate your time. And I don't know where my mind was, but I referenced Gibbs earlier and I said university. So clearly half of my brain is asleep this morning. Well, Dr. Magwegwe, we know that we are dealing with South Africans whose real income is on the decrease, right? We're heading towards financial year end in the country. And as we do that, we're going to have more and more people come up who are talking about the need for salary increases, who are in fact pushing for salary increases, hoping that they will be above inflation. It doesn't always work out to be that way. And it seems that, our budgets are really beyond squeezed in some instances. And I wonder what the practical ways for us to change whatever experience we might be having is, if getting more money is not an option, because that is the one clear way of improving people's financial situations, right? Increase salaries and suddenly you find that there is that difference. But people are lucky in this day and age if they actually get salary increases.
You're quite right. And I think it's so interesting how you're positioning the discussion. I really love it because we firstly taking reality into account, right? To say it's really been a tough, not only 2 months for me as we end the financial year end, of the government, we can so to speak, and companies. But I think for me, it has been a challenge since COVID. For many people, their finances were upended by COVID. And so it really has been 3 years or so of people just struggling to manage their day-to-day finances. You'd recall that was also made even worse, right, by the increasing interest rates that we saw. Things are somewhat changing now. We can come back to that. We also saw, with inflation high, that led to those increases in interest rates. That just meant your transport, your food, goods and services in also. So the reality here is we're dealing with a consumer who has been under severe financial pressure for quite some time. And therefore, you really are putting the right question on the table that says, if I've gone through some challenges over the last 3 years, things may have somewhat improved, but I'm not quite where I was pre-COVID, as an example. What do you do now if you are facing the reality that perhaps you'll get an increase just that matches inflation, right? If you're fortunate, as you said earlier. And so one needs to say, what else can I do in the context of I'm not really getting a lot of additional money to help me run my day-to-day finances? And there are a couple of things that consumers can do, Cathy. And the first one, you already have shared it. It's the idea of standing back and just being honest. And I often say when I talk to my students at the University of Pretoria, Gibbs is the business school of the University of Pretoria, or when I'm wearing my Nedbank hat, I often say the best way to start is to be brutally honest about your current situation. In other words, to say, my goodness, I'm really struggling with home loan payments or car loan payments. I'm even having to forego driving to the office and using public transport because things are just expensive. Or I'm behind with my clothing retail account, or I've maxed my credit card. That awareness and reality of where you are more likely able to come up with solutions that can help other than wishing to get more money. And often I come across many consumers, and what they say is, I know it's already bad. I don't want to traumatize myself. They even use that language. Why traumatize myself? I'm not even going to check. I know the credit score is bad. I know I'm behind payments. And I say, no, it's actually the opposite. Look at it and then get the help that you need to address that. Yeah. So I love where you started our conversation.
Yeah.
And it's, please have that courage. It's not always easy to really face the financial situation head on. In other words, where exactly am I? And then we can talk about practical steps that you can take after being brutally honest about the current situation, including the fact that I may not get an increase that will substantially change my financial situation.
Frank, why is it that it is so hard to have that honesty, right?
I love that question.
You're making me laugh.
I love that.
Yeah, you're making me laugh when you say that. People say, no, I don't want to traumatize myself, by actually seeing this.
What's the point?
Yes, and that's it, right? We know this. Yes. We have a sense of the state of our finances, but sometimes because we feel that it's too traumatic to get into the nitty-gritty, then we choose to just live in that state of ignorance to an extent.
Correct. And it makes things worse, Cathy. That's why I really enjoyed where you started our conversation, because we're not starting about the practical step. We will get to them. But you can't really have practical steps if you haven't faced up to the reality of your situation. Now, you ask such a powerful question, Cathy. You say, why is it that, right? And I'm going to answer in two ways, right? I'm going to answer first from my own experience. Because often when Cathy has a guest who's talking about personal finance, people often just see that person as perfect. They manage their money well. Listen, they talk budgeting. They talk saving. That's why Cathy is inviting them on the show. But it wasn't always like that for me. So I know from a personal experience why often people don't look at the financial situation. They are scared. They feel it traumatized them. When I started working way back in 1998, I struggled with my finances. The period 98 to about 2001 was really a struggle for me. First person, to get a tertiary qualification in my household, helping extended family, wanting to dress the part, wanting to drive the part, wanting to dine the part as a recent graduate. That put me in serious financial problems where then we used to talk about your name being with the ITC, which is, one of the oldest credit bureaus in South Africa. And I ended up there. And I can tell you from that experience, Cathy, the personal experience, and the many people that I've engaged with and the studies I've done on this topic, I've come to this conclusion, marrying my own personal experience and engaging with others and just what studies tell us, right? And it is this, Cathy. When a grown-up who wakes up every day and goes to work, who has been adulting for a while, if we use modern language, when they realize that the situation with their finances is not where it should be, right? Either I'm behind with payments, or I have too much debt, or the credit score is not where it is, or I'm being called by debt collectors. What that does to an individual, Cathy, is that it induces shame, right? What is shame? Shame is a personal judgment of I could have done better. And there are two types of shame. The first is internal shame. Look at me. I wake up every day. I work so hard, yet I can't even manage my finances. I can't even show evidence of all the work I've done for the month or for the week. Because the moment the money goes in, the debit orders take all that money away. That constant talk in someone's head, it's internal shame. You're judging yourself. I could have done better, right? And constantly judging yourself leads someone to say, I know it's already bad. I know I'm not managing my money well. I don't even want to look. That's one aspect of it. Then we go to the external shame, Cathy. That's what society says about indebtedness. What society says about people who are in debt review or in debt counseling. What society says if a debt collector is chasing after you. There's also that external shame. Oh my goodness, are you in this situation? That's why we don't want to even talk about finances. So the combination of the societal expectation and the internal dialogue of I could have done, why did I take that loan? Where is the money even going? Leads to a situation where the person just says, it's better off I don't even look at it. I don't know how it will solve itself out, but I know it's very bad. I don't even want to look. And so that is the main reason. It's emotional reason. It's psychological reasons why people are not prepared to engage with their finances. They know it's not looking good, but they are not prepared to look at that bank statement or at the credit score. And the main reason is external and internal shame.
One of the dangers, of course, is that it then leaves us in this perpetual cycle of living from hand to mouth, right? Because we're constantly, stealing from Peter to pay Paul, and yet we're working with these deficits continually, month to month, day
Correct.
to day.
Yes.
And I wonder, how then do we begin to break the cycle and regain control of our finances? Because in many ways, once you're in the month to month cycle, the hand to mouth cycle, you're in free fall effectively. Because you're not completely sure of what may come, and you're just dealing with things as and when they arise.
Yes. So what that does, Cathy, it's so interesting kind of how we are layering it up for our listeners, right? So where you are taking us with the conversation now, Cathy, is this. You're saying, okay, there's this aspect of perhaps I'm judging myself harshly. It induces shame. Society says this about managing your money, right? And the reality is I'm running on a tight budget, or I'm on hand to mouth, as you're calling it. What then happens? What happens is, and you can see we're really touching on, firstly, psychological factors to help our listeners understand what is happening to you. There's nothing wrong with you. It's a normal reaction to somewhat struggling with finances. And so what happens is your decision making gets compromised, Cathy. Why? Because you are so short-term focused. You are just saying, if I can only pay rent, or if I can only pay the school fees, or if I can only have the money to go to work during the month, right? So what's happening to you is your thinking is so narrow. They often call it like a tunnel vision. You're really zooming into the struggle with finances. Your eyes, your mind is consumed by that. And so you are in this survival mode. And hence you are talking of, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. So I'm going to get from this bank to that bank because Laba, they are now saying they will repossess the car. Then I got a call about I'm going to be blacklisted because I'm behind this clothing account. Then I'm going to get money to cover that. So you can see there really is no long-term solution that will alleviate the situation that comes out of this situation. So it makes things worse. You miss a payment, the credit score gets worse. The credit score gets worse. You're no longer able to access debt, I guess, in the formal system. And hence, you end up seeing a consumer who's struggling with their finances. And you often wonder, why did they go to loan sharks? Why did they go to informal lenders? Part of it is this compromised decision-making, in other words, poor decision-making, because I'm really so stuck in this survival mode. Once we are aware, if we go back to where we started, this is the situation. I'm really, really struggling. And I know it triggers emotions of shame. It triggers emotions of regret, perhaps because I'm finding myself with too much debt. It triggers emotions of inadequacy. It makes me feel maybe low self-esteem. You are accepting that which we call money is associated with a lot of emotions. You accept that emotion. When you accept those emotions, Cathy, to answer your question, what happens next? You are creating room for being more resourceful. You are creating room for being more creative around solving the problem, especially when we start with that premise, Cathy, that says you're not necessarily going to suddenly get a lot of money or a big increase or a big bonus. You acknowledge the situation. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I really can't continue my life like this. Hopefully, that sense of I need to take action, something gotta change, right? What can it do? It can do a couple of things to get now to solution for our listeners. One could be, I think I cannot solve it on my own. This has been a situation for the last 8 months, 12 months, for the last 2 years. I have to acknowledge I'm not able to solve it myself. Maybe I need to work with a financial advisor, right? Maybe I need to go and get help. Maybe I need to go and talk to someone at the bank. That's one possible solution. Another, and you can see these solutions don't cost money. Another solution, Cathy, might be, let me really look where the money is going. Let me try to get my bank statement and really see what is consuming the money. What are my needs? What are my wants? As an example, is it transport? Is it food, for example? Is it data? Is it phone calls? Is it school fees, right? Let me take charge and figure out what's going on. Another third one might simply be, let me get a credit score. Let me get my credit report. I know a lot of my money is going towards repaying debt. So let me see how much money. Do you see how you can start being practical, Cathy, once you have engaged with the situation and its emotions?
Okay. We're going to continue the conversation with Frank, and we'll stay then with this question of what to do, how to handle it. Frank says, do you reach out for help? And I know finances are so personal. Nobody wants other people knowing their business. So even just that step of reaching out for help is often one of the most difficult to do. So hopefully some of the solutions are also self-service solutions that don't require third parties to help people truly look at the state of affairs. It's 10:30, time for your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines on SAFM News, I am Ondalambana, and a very good morning. Author of the book titled Farm Killings in South Africa book, Dr. Nichama Brody, says there is no white farmers are being targeted simply because of their race. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order stopping all aid to South Africa over what he called a human rights violation against a white minority group. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence says South Africa's deployment of its soldiers to the DRC aligns with the country's foreign policy. Yesterday, Parliament held a special sitting during which the deaths of 14 South African soldiers in the DRC was debated. And the Johannesburg Emergency Services say mine rescue operations at the Rand Lease abandoned mine in Roodepoort in Western Johannesburg are still suspended. 2 people are believed to be trapped underground since the weekend. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 49 to the dollar, 22 rand 81 to the pound, and 19 rand 05 to the euro. Markets in Asia were weaker at the closing bell. The JSE read across the board in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are higher. Gold is trading at $2,895. Platinum $985 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $75.14 a barrel.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Sheila Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Sheila Ndikumana. This is SAFM. Talking finance, making sense of your finance.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. Talking finance, Brian Hirsch out for the day. Dr. Frank Magwegwe is our guest. He's head of financial education at Nedbank and also senior lecturer at Gibbs. And we're talking then around just managing our finances more broadly and perhaps making the decision, right, to confront the true state of affairs when it comes to our finances and making the decisions that we need to in order to turn things around. And Dr. Frank has shared really some important insights. I loved how he said what happens when you are living in sort of the cycle of debt, living hand to mouth, is that your focus becomes so short term. The thinking becomes very narrow. So you are not even able to plan in the long run, and your decision making becomes impaired. So you know you're in debt, but then you apply for another credit card, and for whatever reason the institution gives it to you. And then it digs, an even deeper hole for you when it comes to managing the debt, and that's part of the thinking that that is created by the cycle, right? Because we're not taking stock of what is happening. I wonder how you are managing some of these issues on your side. I'd love to take your calls on 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. And on the WhatsApp voice note line, you can send those WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. And what actually makes it difficult to confront one's budget and to sit with perhaps the gaps, right, as they are, so that we're not always living in this cycle that is created by need. When the school fees comes up, it's like you didn't know it was coming up. Suddenly, you have to find the money elsewhere. It puts you under that pressure. And I hope that Frank's advice is going to be helpful and useful to all of us this morning. So, Frank, we were still talking about what we should do.
Cathy.
Still talking about what we should do. And I was saying that when it comes
we're
to
building on that.
Yes, when it comes to looking for second and third parties to intervene, to me that's always a difficult thing to do, right? Because you don't want people knowing what's going on in your affairs. Yes, these are third parties. They they've got no dog in the fight, so they'll be independent and neutral. But still, it's the fact that I don't want anybody knowing, because of that shame that you've spoken about, right? Because I'm already judging myself.
You saw right, Kathy, and in fact, you mentioned, as we were summarizing our talk before the break, right? One of the things you mentioned as you were summarizing it for the wonderful listeners, you mentioned this idea of you getting sort of in a tunnel vision and your decision making gets compromised, right? Just to build on that is what you are saying now. We see it as one of the top reasons why people don't ask for financial help. So last year, to just give an example and to give data, so that listeners can understand, we're not making this up. South Africans are reporting it to us. So as Nest Bank last year, we run it every year. It's a NetFin health monitor. Basically, we use it to track the financial health of working South Africans. We interview about 1,500 South Africans across the country. We asked that question specifically, Kathy. What stops you from seeking financial help? And in fact, we called it financial help or guidance, because often when you talk of financial advice, people think of buying products like a retirement annuity, like an endowment, like a unit trust. So we deliberately called it generally financial assistance, help, guidance. The number one reasons. 51% of our respondents, 5 in 10, Kathy, they said they are ashamed of talking to a third party about their finances. That was the number one presenting reason. The other one was I just believe finances are a personal topic. I'm not prepared to discuss it with another person. Then the third reason was, I really don't have enough money to talk to anyone about it. Now, if you look at those 3 reasons, right? I don't have enough money. It's a taboo kind of topic. It's financial. You can see all those are psychological reasons. All those are, in other words, a mindset. It's about our attitudes and our beliefs towards money and getting help. So certainly that shame, Kathy, that we spoke about before the break, and you were summarizing so beautifully, is one of the reasons why people don't get help. What's so interesting and at the same time sad for me, Kathy, is that because your decision making has become compromised, you are struggling with payments for clothes, credit cards, home, car loan, right? School fees. And because your decision is compromised, you are in this state of, I know it's bad, but I don't really want to know how bad it is. And you do nothing. Right at the beginning, Kathy, in your intro to the show, you mentioned that makes things worse. It's so true that it's so sad. Part of the education we need to do is really to help people not to be harsh on themselves. I often say they must practice self-compassion with their finances. It's hard. We never formally taught how to manage money. There's no formal school for it. You learn from the school of hard knocks. Most of us do. And of course, amazing shows such as this one on Tuesdays, right? And so just kind of give yourself a break. This thing is hard. Be kind to yourself, because when you're kind, you're able to say, I'm sure I'm not the only one struggling. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has ever had financial issues. Therefore, you gather that courage, Kathy, to say, let me go and talk to a financial advisor or for guidance.
Frank, the other thing about the financial advisors is that they're going to tell us partly what we already know, in the sense that you're going to sit there, they're going to ask you, okay, what are your expenses on a month to month? What is your income? And that basic maths already is able to give one a picture. And then they're going to start nitpicking. They're going to go for the car. Okay, do you really need this car? Can't you buy a cheaper car? And no, I don't want to drive a cheaper car because everybody has already seen me in my not so cheap car. And then they're going to say, look at your clothing account. How much are you spending on clothes? Do you need all of this clothes? Of course I need all of these clothes. That's why I bought them. Because I must show up to work every day looking like I deserve to be in the position that I'm in. They must know. They must not misunderstand the situation. And then you're going to go to the school fees, and you're going to say, no, dude, why are you paying so much in school fees? Because I have to give my children a better life. You know, what must I do? The reality is that we have ways of justifying why our finances and the state they're in.
And it's so beautiful because you really put the shoes of your listener. I really love the picture you've painted, right? Because the first interaction or session with a coach or with a financial planner or advisor, right? Often they would have asked you for some data and some numbers, bank statements, where's the money going? Do you have an idea? Let me help you figure it out. And so what's so interesting in the world we are in today, there's almost a shift, Cathy, that's happening. And the old kind of, traditional financial guidance, financial planner, financial advisor who just looks at the cold numbers, who just says, why are you shopping here? Where are the kids at school and why? I saw you ate out, but you still not able to make this payment, right? That world, there's a slow shift because that world is premised on the idea that tell them, once they know it in their heads, once they know it intellectual, they will do it. But you and I know, our listeners and us, the two people in this conversation, we don't operate like that. There's a lot of emotions around what we do with exactly, Cathy, your point that, but I have to dress this way. It means a lot to me. It's important for my self-esteem. I need to go out once a month. It's important for my overall well-being. So what you're seeing now in financial planning courses, where they're starting to be a certified financial planner, there's a lot of what they call behavioral finance coming, or behavioral economy. The idea that there is a lot of emotions. So rather than saying to someone, yo, I see you going out a lot, but you are struggling with debt, right? No, you don't say that. What you want to say is, please, can you explain what's happening to the money, right? You putting the power to the person. What do you think is happening? Where is it going? And when you help like that, you help the client find their own. So let me give you a quick example. Many years ago, I had a client, mid-40s, Osis Gloria, working at Sasso. I had a contract when I was doing financial education. I've got a company that helps employees with their financial well-being. I have this opportunity to do it at ESCOM. And I'm doing this conversation. We get to Sis Gloria says, and she's calling me Baba. She says, I now know where the money is going. I say, wow, tell me more. Right? So in other words, Kate, I'm saying you're trying to give help without judging. The person is already judging themselves. Don't make it worse. She says, I grew up in the era of window shopping. But I notice every time I go window shopping, I always come back having bought something, even though I had planned that I'm not going to buy anything. I say, tell me more. She explains this. And I say to her, so what are you going to do about it? And she says, well, I think I'll go window shopping, but I'll leave my credit card behind because the credit card is the problem. And you're talking 5-7 years ago, right? And there is a solution she came up with herself. But of course, these days, you can tap with your phone, you can tap with your watch. But the point I'm making is often those creative solutions that really shift behavior, they work when the client, when our listener here on SAFM says, let me try that. And then the financial advisor becomes an accountability partner. How is it going? Did you try that? Is it working? If it's not working, what can we do? So you are quite right that the experience of financial guidance, help, financial planning, often people even feel judged. They are judging themselves. They go to this person who just want to coldly remove this, remove that. And so people also don't then carry on seeking help because of that experience.
Okay, let me bring in some of the inputs of our listeners who are listening to this conversation. We'll start off with the WhatsApp voice notes.
Hi, good morning, Cathy. Could you please ask your guest there if paying off all your debts actually affects your credit score negatively? Because that's what happened to me. I paid off all my debts, including a personal loan from Nedbank, by the way. I paid them all off, and now I don't have any debt. My credit score shot up, and then in the last 4 months, it just dropped like dramatically. And I don't have any debt in my name. And contacting the credit bureau is a waste of time. You just get generic emails. They don't answer calls. They don't respond to emails. So now, is paying off your debt all your debts actually affect your credit score?
Hello, Cathy. I absolutely enjoy your guest's passion about personal finances. I just would like to raise the fact that there are environmental factors that affect people's personal finances. There's also, macroeconomic issues that impact on us. I mean, if the economy is not doing so well and businesses are not able to sustain having employees, they retrench. And so many of us have been retrenched more than once in the past 5 years. And the implications of that is that it directly has an effect on your personal finances. You still have to pay fees. You still have to pay rent. You still have to have a vehicle. You still have to survive. And not everyone is an entrepreneur. And how do we survive, considering all of those factors? Thank you, Meta.
Sure. Thank you both for those WhatsApp voice notes. And those are very real situations and questions that Frank can tackle. Frank?
Yeah, and powerful. Thank you for listening to the show. I will start with the credit score. Well done on checking your credit score. Our research at Nedbank, for example, tells us that only 6 in 10 South Africans regularly check their credit score. So you are among the 6 in 10. Well done. That number should go up because the National Credit Act does allow for checking your credit score for free once a year with any of the big credit bureaus. The Experience, the TransUnion of this world, XDS, CombiScan. So please take it. And banks also, they are providing that. Well done on checking your credit score. Specifically answering your question, you're quite right that when you pay off debt, what happens is either over the next few months, you see when they rerun the numbers, you see your credit score dropping. Why? For 2 main reasons. A credit score is a function of how much debt do you owe? 2, how well do you pay that debt on time? And maybe we can add a third one. What comprises that debt? Is it home loan, car loans, personal loans? So naturally, when you pay off debt, which is a good thing, you have got cash flow, you pay off debt, the subsequent month, there's no longer a history of you, right? Of how much you owe, of how well you pay it, and what type of debt that you have. So in a strange way, it brings you back to almost what all of us face when we finish school and enter the world of work, where we have no credit history. So essentially we have no credit scores, so they're very, very low, right? So when you don't have or don't use any credit, you have a very low score because there's no evidence of you taking a loan and paying it well. But of course, it shouldn't worry you that much if you are not, in the market to try to get another loan firstly. And also the score doesn't really fall dramatically, like from good to very bad. So, but yeah, that's the answer. It does affect it.
But doesn't
Then
that
the
come,
second-
Frank? Sorry to come in there.
Yes.
Does,
No worries, Cathy.
does that not point to the fact that the system is designed to actually keep us indebted? No, it is. It is. It is. Because if you want to be debt free, then whenever you and if we're talking about, real assets here potentially that one may be wanting to acquire, if you want to buy a house, then you have to show your credit score. But now you've been a good citizen your whole life. You've thought that it's good not to have debt. You don't want a credit card. You want to be, just live within your means. But at the point that now you have to get credit, you're punished for that.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, Cathy. And it's one of those weird or quirky things about the credit system, right? That it punishes you heavily at the beginning, where it says you have no history, no one will give you a loan. right? And then you take your clothing account, you start paying it well, or you take a phone on credit, on account, in other words, and or on contract, and then you build this credit score. Then you get to a point where you say, I'm actually okay, I want to manage my finances better, I want to reduce debt. And then the opposite happens, where you actually penalize, in courts for now having, reduced your debt. So that's kind of how the system works. And you're right that in a way it incentivizes that if you want to maintain a credit score, always have some amount of debt. And so there's been quite a challenge, Cathy, to rating agencies, to credit bureaus, in other words. They rate personal finances and they give this score. And they've been asked to include other measures. Don't just limit to how much debt do I have, how well do I pay it, what is the mix, how long have I been using debt. That's pretty much what they take into account. So there's been a lot of pressure over the last few years, both from academia and practitioners, to say exactly, we must solve part of what we put on the table here, the constant incentivization to remain in debt so that you maintain a good credit score. Yeah. So there is a lot of debate on that, but you're quite right. One has to be very disciplined to say, I don't need the debt. So I'm okay if my credit score drops by 10 or 15 points, but I know it's for this reason that I no longer have debt. Yeah, spot on.
All right, Frank, I'm going to give you a chance to answer Mita before I bring in Stephen Centurion. So if you can respond to Mita.
That's a
very
short
quickly.
one, because we did talk about it, Cathy, at the beginning. What I want to emphasize is I agree, and it's one of the things I talk about when I get opportunities on platforms such as this, that the financial health of a consumer is made up of two parts, in my view. The first is the consumer's attitudes, behaviors, minds. What are they doing with the money? The little that they have, if they're saying it's so little, that's one. Then there's external shocks. That's the second part. The economy, the being retrenched, and using up all your emergency savings. So I often say, if we're going to have a South Africa that have financially healthy consumers, we need employers, Cathy, to also take an active role to help, because often it's not just that the individual is not doing enough. Sometimes the individual is doing all that they can, right? But external shocks like a retrenchment, or they're just not earning enough, or they stay far away from the point of work and they use a lot of money for transport. So employers, they also really have a role to make sure, that within their constraints, they also do their bit, just in terms of improving the financial health of their consumers through, better pay, adequate benefits, and including financial education also in the workplace. Yeah. But things like COVID really can have a big impact on someone's finances.
Yeah, look, and it is, of course, very difficult for people to be able to navigate through that. Imagine being retrenched twice just in the last 5 years. How does one even begin to plan what their life then should look like? And it may be something that we can bring up for discussion in one of the segments. Okay, Stephen Centurion, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. I have a question about financial advisors because they were mentioned as, a source of help. But my problem with financial advisors is that they seem conflicted. They sell products to us when you are there just for financial advice. They want to sell you products. If you go to a bank, they will sell you the products of that particular bank. And I find that all financial advisors are selling products, and they want you to buy the product that benefits them the most in terms of their commission. So what advice can we get around working with financial advisors, and how is this issue of conflict of interest generally managed so that we are protected as consumers of this particular service? I don't know if this makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good question, Steve. Let's give Frank an opportunity to answer. Don't go.
It's an excellent question, Cathy. So a couple of points there. Building on our earlier conversation, there's a shift in financial planning, in financial advice. And that shift, firstly, taking some of the psychology and emotions around money to just equip the individuals to come off from a place of less judging. The other shift to build on that speaks to, I think it's Steve's question, is the change in remuneration, Cathy. There's been a huge shift over the last decade in South Africa where we traditionally saw financial advisors earning commission only, and therefore anyone who is not buying a product is essentially wasting their time. Why should I talk to you? Because talking to you doesn't put food in my mouth unless you buy a product. What we have seen, because financial service providers realize the conflict that Steve spoke about, we have seen financial advisors introducing basic salary. Whether you sell or not, you earn 5,000. I know some companies is that level. Some even have 7.5 as a basic pay. Then you earn commission on top of that. And why are they doing that? Is to deal with the conflict that Steve speaks about. To say, sometimes you're going to meet a Frank, a Cathy, a Steve, who is in need of your expertise to structure their finances. It could even be over the next year. They are not able to buy any product. Therefore, don't sell them product, build a relationship with them, help them with the budgeting, with the tracking their expenses, with making some of those calls as an accountability partner, or also someone who's a bit removed from their exact financial situation and its emotions. You're a little bit removed because you are not in it, like we spoke about before the break, right? And so that shift is quite positive. So what do we say, Cathy, to consumers? 3 things. Number 1, when you approach a financial advisor, be it at a bank or an insurer or an independent one, tell them, I do not want to buy a product. Are you able to help me if I'm not buying a product? I really would like someone to help me think through my finances. I do not have the disposable income to buy a product. 1. 2, you are allowed by the FAIS Act, Cathy, to ask, how are you remunerated? That's a question that's allowed. You can ask that question, Steve. And the person should tell you commission only or commission plus basic. You can even go further to say which product brings you the most. And we know one of the products that gives the most commission is like funeral cover. So now we are aware that the person may have an incentive to sell funeral cover as opposed to a saving product. That's important. A third question that our Steve and our consumers, Cathy, should ask advisors is, how long have you been a financial advisor? What are your qualifications? That is also allowed from a FAIS Act perspective, because then you see someone who's good at maybe life and funeral cover, someone good at investments and savings, maybe someone good at estate planning. We're talking about your trust and your wills and all that. So you are in the driving seat. And if there's no chemistry between you and a financial advisor, no, go and interview another. You don't have to kind of just work with the first one you come across.
All right. Steve, I hope that helps. All right.
Especially the first question. Thank you so much. It really helps.
All right. Fantastic. All the best.
Fantastic.
Steve,
I'm so glad.
Steve out in Centurion. Okay, I want to quickly read this message. Good morning, Cathy and your guest. Me and my wife, we differ when coming to view of our financial matters. She's the only one working, and she doesn't feel the necessity to analyze our financial issues. She thinks that it's not important, as we know that all the income is going to debt anyway. She's lost interest in analyzing our situation, and it's so bad. What quick advice do you have for him, Frank, before we wrap this conversation up?
That, Cathy, is money personality, sometimes called money mindset. It sounds like the hubby probably is a planner. In other words, they want to track where the money is going. Maybe the wife is not, a planner. Maybe they are a person maybe who's, perhaps could be carefree as a money personality, or it could be a giver. And so the first thing these two individuals can do to avoid conflicts over money is to do some questionnaire that tells you your personality and how you engage with money. They can go to a website, if I can quickly share it in closing.
Very quickly, please.
netbankmoneysecrets.co.za. netbankmoneysecrets.co.za. Go and do your money personality there. It will solve the arguments within the household about money.
Frank, let me thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Frank Magwegwe, Head of Financial Education at Nedbank, also Senior Lecturer at Gibbs. That's where we leave it with Talking Finance. Up next, the latest news update.
Thank you, Cathy. Top stories. Author weighs in on farm killings and South African soldier deployment in the DRC aligned with foreign policy. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana and a very good morning. Author of the book titled Farm Killings in South Africa, Dr. Lechama Brody, says there's no white farmers are being targeted simply because of their race. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order stopping all aid to South Africa over what he called a human rights violation against a white minority group. The Trump administration says the South African government is allowing violent attacks against Afrikaner farming communities. In her book, Dr. Brody challenges many of the myths related to farm killings.
We know that farm murders don't just affect white farmers. They affect everybody living and working in and around agricultural areas and in rural areas. There have been people who push conspiracy theories pretty much to boost their own popularity, and we can see that with some of the so-called prominent figures in sort of Afrikaner communities. I think the majority of Afrikaner communities in South Africa are saying, we want to be here, we want to work together, and then you have a few who stand out and spread conspiracy theories. And unfortunately, this is what has sort of taken hold in the United States in particular. We can see that they love leadership that is full of falsehoods.
4 people accused of involvement in illegal mining and 2 suspected kingpins will be back in the Ridabi Magistrate Court in Limpopo on Tuesday next week. They are accused of operating a gold processing laboratory at a farm along the R71 at Darendal Rand outside Tsanin. The accused are facing charges of illegal processing of gold-bearing materials. Provincial Police spokesperson Malisela Lidwaba says officers have also confiscated various items.
2 of these individuals are suspected to be main kingpins behind the illegal mining activities. During the operation, police seized various items believed to have been used in the illegal processing of minerals, including containers with carbon ashes, gas bottles, among others. Furthermore, 2 vehicles, a red Haval and white Mercedes-Benz, both with Gauteng registration plates, believed to belong to the 2 suspected kingpins, were seized.
Johannesburg Emergency Services say rescue operations at the Rand Lease abandoned mine in Rotterport in western Johannesburg are still suspended. 2 people are believed to be trapped underground since the weekend. The rescue operations had to be halted yesterday for safety reasons. Pral Makubane reports.
Johannesburg Emergency Services requested the assistance from the Department of Mineral Resources after they struggled to make it down the shaft on Sunday. With more expertise and more advanced equipment, the trapped miners could not be brought to the surface for safety reasons, forcing the mine rescue team to halt operations. With no screams from the abandoned shaft, it remains unclear if those trapped are still alive. Meanwhile, emergency services are still waiting for an update from DMR and the police before they can go back to the mine. Pearl Makubane, SABC News.
Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence says South Africa's deployment of its soldiers to the DRC aligns with the country's foreign policy. Yesterday, Parliament held a special sitting during which the deaths of 14 South African soldiers in the DRC was debated. Their bodies are expected to be repatriated from the Uganda capital, Kampala, on Thursday. EFF MP Natasha Ntlangwini condemned President Cyril Ramaphosa's authorization of the deployment. The committee's chairperson, Takota Lehuete.
In terms of our foreign policy, we are for unity of Africa. But equally, why it's in our interest as a country to get stability in any part of our region is because we are a receiving nation of all people who runs away from wars in their country. You would know that in South Africa, if everything was to go tit for tat in the DRC, almost 1 million or 2 million of those people will end up in South Africa as refugees. And it's important for us to help the DRC to find peace.
Only a dozen of the 195 nations have met a UN deadline to submit plans on cutting greenhouse gas emissions. The aim of the plan is to help keep global temperature rises below 1.5 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels. The BBC's Danny Aberhart has the details.
In order to limit dangerous global warming, the UN's Paris Climate Accord relies on nations drawing up and then acting on plans to cut emissions. Scientists warn too that even some of their plans aren't compatible with keeping temperature rises to 1.5 degrees. That's seen as critical to help limit ever more extreme impacts on humans and the natural world. Scientists calculate it as an average over a 20-year period, but 2024 was the first single year when temperatures exceeded that figure.
Recapping the top story, author of the book titled Farm Killings in South Africa, Dr. Nishama Brody, says no white farmers are being targeted simply because of their race. I am Ondilambana for SFM News, headlines at 11:30.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Morning, Cathy. Cathy, just find out for me, man, from SASSA as to why do they take the social grant away from the child when the child reaches a certain age, but the child is still at high school and he or she needs help? What is the logic on this? Thank you, Cathy. It's Plandy in Cape Town.
Hi, Cathy. I just want you to find out from Polokwane municipality, from the mayor, John Mpe. How possible is it that you build RDP and don't have electricity? I mean, are we not trying to elevate the lives of the poor? And putting a person in a house without electricity, do you know that it makes that person more poor? Because life without electricity is even more expensive. Extension 134, there's no electricity there. You're taking from the dealer from Seychelles.
Good morning, House Katie. This is Wanisida from Tata. You know, for me, this is simple. AfriForum and the other Afrikaner lobby groups, they don't want to govern together with black people. They want their own country. That's the whole agenda. I wouldn't be surprised in the future they come out saying that they want their own country, they want the country to be divided in the middle. And also, Elon Musk, he's got an agenda. He's a businessman. He's got something to gain out of all of this. Why would he even care about South Africa out of all the countries that he can pay his focus in? But he's mainly focused on South Africa. So for me, he's got an agenda. He's got something to gain. And they just want to divide the country in the middle. It's simple as that.
Good morning, Sis Cathy and team. Like to allude or add on to what Tumisang from Northern Cape was saying. It's truly a problem. I travel vastly across the Northern Cape in the space of a month, and one thing I can confirm is that kids are out of school around 12:30 in the Northern Cape. It's truly a problem, and another thing that still needs to be addressed is the fact that school sports is a big problem. The minister, the departments within Northern Cape, they need to attend to that. It is truly a problem. You go to schools with big football fields, big rugby fields. There's nothing happening, especially at our public schools. Thank you, Cathy. Glow in Northern Cape.
Good morning, Kathy. It's Tumelo from Kimberley in the Northern Cape. I don't know if you are aware of this, but there are, I don't know if is it a system issue with NSFAS, but there's a serious challenge with the NSFAS system when it's supposed to give feedback. I've had a few of the returning students who were using NSFAS previously have passed, but now some have different courses, have been accepted for different courses. Some have not gotten the renewed funding. There's a lot of confusion within their system. Sometimes you have registered for a course or you are doing a certain course on the system. It says you are doing a different course. Sometimes it even messes up the universities. I'm not sure if it's possible for you to invite maybe somebody from NSFAS so that they can take questions on this. Thank you.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
May I carry the struggle of women on my back even when my nails make my palms bleed and ache. May I never hold anything back. And I take back every moment that I doubted my brilliance, resilience. I'm the first of my kind. I'm a myriad of dreams. I'm what my ancestors created. It's written, my story in red and white at every women's mañana. I'm Methodist. I'm the bird that carried the message across the seas. My people are united. I'm Mangaliso Sobuko's inspiration, don't you doubt it. And when I question the men about the absence of women, they were wounded. I'm the women's movement. I'm my sister's keeper, the seed that built the community, the long forgotten cornerstone that the natives refused. I'm the song to sing you to submission. I sit with kings and every one of them feels my mission. Kuphithizela koloya basadi hayduma yatsamaye zakusiyacindezela besithi sebenzisane sonke but nakho you make it obvious that a woman must take the lead nasukumeza nasicindezela 100 years later sacula ingoma eyodwa. It's like marching to the union buildings never made a difference. It never made a difference. Sisafuni inkululeko. I am the women's movement. I'm my sister's keeper. I'm the seed that built the community, the long forgotten cornerstone that the builders refused. I'm the song to sing you to submission. I sit with kings and every one of them feels my mission. Phakamisani igama lami ndinguCharlotte Makhomo Maxeke. Phakamisani igama lami.
And that's a tribute to Charlotte Maxeke by Nziki Mazwai. The 5th of February kicked off the beginning of the 125th commemorations of Charlotte Maxeke's life. The Charlotte Maxeke Institute also used the occasion to announce the appointment of Professor Musawenkosi Saurombe, who has been chosen because she mirrors the legacy of Maxeke and will enhance the importance of access to equal education. While Prof. Saurombe joins us now as the newly appointed ambassador for the commemoration year of 125 years. She's a senior lecturer at the University of Johannesburg, and a few years ago, you may have remembered her as being the youngest female to hold a PhD in the entire continent. That was at the tender age of 23. Musawenkosi, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
A very good morning to you too, Cathy. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be speaking to you this morning.
Firstly, we have to begin just with your own journey in terms of the excellence that you've managed to attain in academia. 23 PhD at the time set a record of becoming the youngest PhD female graduate, not only in the country but in the continent. That surely must have been quite a significant time in your life.
Oh, absolutely. It really was a significant time, and I often describe it as an out-of-body experience because, when I look back at how I ended up achieving that feat, it really blew my mind that what initially had been a personal goal, I didn't actually realize at the time that it would culminate in record breaking, but just the impact that it had on so many people, despite that, that wasn't initially the intention. That just, really humbled me, and I'm so honored and grateful.
You were enrolling for university at the age of 16, which means that you were done with the first and secondary phase of your education by the time you were 15. Now, explain that for me and the listeners. How smart are you exactly, Prof?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, which I do get a lot. But I think just in the spirit of humility, I don't know. I don't know if I'm exactly genius, but I would say it was a combination of nature and nurture. I'm so grateful to my parents who saw the gifts in me and didn't allow them to remain dormant. They intentionally nurtured those gifts. And I would like to, posit that sometimes you do have so many bright young people, young children who have the nature in them, for intellect, however, don't always get the nurture. And, unfortunately, we lose so many young, bright, promising children because, of the lack of nurture. So I will say, definitely a combination of nature and nurture.
And what pushed you in the direction of industrial psychology? I mean, you're now an associate professor at UJ, which again is quite a feat, just given the fact that you are still young. Yes, you may be older than 23, but you are still young, still under your 30s. So what pushed you in that direction?
Okay. So I actually graduated in 2017, and I always, like you rightfully said, have to remind people I'm no longer 23. It's been 8 years. It's been 8 years, well, this is the 8th year. But I am, relatively young, just not as young as I was back then. I did, obviously achieve associate professorship still in my 20s. I've just obviously entered into my 30s, and it's been quite a journey. And I'm just grateful for every milestone, that has culminated in where I am right now. And, just looking back, I'm so grateful for, just the acceleration that I have enjoyed, throughout my life. And I always say that God really positioned me, for that kind of acceleration. And true to my name, so Nkosi, I do believe, my entire life is just a story of, the grace of God. Starting school at 4 years old to skipping grade 3 and grade 10, completing my high school, like you said, when I was 15, joining a tertiary institution at 16, and, completing my tertiary qualifications all in record time. And even just the journey from, becoming a postdoctoral fellow to entering the professoriate, it has been quite an accelerated journey. And it's really an honor to be associated and affiliated with such an icon as Charlotte, because I can resonate. Her journey resonates with me. I can completely relate. She was a pioneer and someone who just, was so accelerated in her being, in her journey, way ahead of her time, and it's such an honor to be affiliated and associated with her.
And we'll get more into why it is that you agreed to take up this ambassadorship when we continue the conversation shortly.
Defending champions are eager to display a top-class brand of football to emphasize why they are Wienerkusen, while the Bavarians are confident this is their season. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the Battle of Giants, Bayer Leverkusen FC versus Bayern München FC on Saturday, 15 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
We continue the conversation on the talking point, reflecting then on the 125th commemorations of Charlotte Maxake's life and her legacy. And Professor Musawenkosi Saurombe is the appointed ambassador who will be championing the message for the CMMI, which is the Charlotte Maxake Institute, for this year. And she's been in conversation with us. So, you were touching on it just before we went to break, Musawenkosi, that Charlotte Maxake was an outlier in so many ways, and I guess it's the obvious commonality, right, that so much of your own story has those patterns that her own life followed. But speak to me about why you decided to take up the role of being the ambassador for this particular year.
So again, like you have rightfully mentioned, who she is, really who she, was, her essence speaks to, who I believe, I've been called to be, and just the journey that I have walked so far. She is such a, relatable, she has a relatable persona to her. And so accepting this role as an ambassador for, this auspicious occasion coming up really speaks to what I stand for, believing in education in an era where now there's quite, some empowerment, especially among young people the world over. You can choose to take the route of anything other than education. But I remain a firm advocate that education is, fundamental. It is a foundation on which strong societies are built. And that is why I decided to accept this invitation to be the ambassador for this occasion in 2026.
It also provides an opportunity, of course, to look at what is happening within the education space more broadly, and the opportunities that are available to women. Yes, we know more women are graduating today than ever before, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always within a space that has been built and shaped for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love that you bring that up, because as I was responding to the previous question, I, kind of hesitated to bring that up. But, it's a very valid point that you are raising, because first of all, access does not equate to, being welcomed in this space. You could be provided access to this space, but still feel as though you are an imposter. And it's issues that still need to be addressed. We look at, even, for example, STEM subjects where women have, been so underrepresented, and it's only now that you have more, women exponentially being found within the STEM space. And these are gaps that need to be addressed imminently. Otherwise, there's no point in preaching, oh, there's access, there's empowerment for women, but not actually creating the spaces and environments that allow them to feel that they have earned their space and their place within these previously male-dominated environments.
Would you say that that's something that you experienced at any point in your career, given how young you were when you entered the system as well?
I have experienced this, for, I'll say possibly all my life. Just the fact that, well, thankfully, at many points in my life, especially before accomplishing, the feat of becoming the youngest female PhD graduate in Africa, a lot of people did not necessarily perceive my age. It's something I was able to quite keep under wraps. And so a lot of people only later realized that, okay, this was not really our peer. But besides that, those who did know, I did experience, I won't, for lack of a better term, I'll say a bit of outcasting, where, you are always underestimated because you're young, you're female, and kind of always having to prove yourself in different spaces. You know how at some point people kind of reach a point where your reputation should precede you. I haven't always enjoyed that, because even, whether you read my profile or my bio, still I've felt that in different spaces there's been that sense of, okay, is she really, capable of what it says on paper? And so I still find myself even today having to prove myself, which I really don't mind, because I'd like to believe I always rise to the occasion. But it's things that stifle, the advancement of a lot of young women. Thankfully, I've had the advantage of coming from a family where I'm the only girl child. So having been used to already a male-dominated environment in my own family, I developed mechanisms, to cope with that. And when I say cope, I use the term loosely, because I learned to thrive, in fact, in that environment. Because for me, even if I'm in a male-dominated space, I don't really put myself down, because it just resembles with a background I'm coming from anyway. So I, in any case, feel that I belong, even if the environment tries to make me feel otherwise. But it's very unfortunate that other young people, may not have the enjoy the same advantage, if I can call it that I have, coming from such a background. And that's where imposter syndrome often kicks in.
Absolutely. And the thing is, when we have a conversation like this, Musawenkosi, sometimes those who don't believe that the concerns that are being raised are legitimate, who think that, it's just another opportunity for women to moan about how unequal the world is, and we all have to prove ourselves, we all have to work hard. It really is not as simple as that, is it?
It really isn't. It really isn't. And if you look at how, life in general or society is stratified, at any given point, you have the oppressors and the ones being oppressed, right? The oppressors and the oppressed. But at other stratas of the society as well, those who are oppressors are also oppressed in other spheres. And even if you look at, if we subdivide society into gender, race, age or generations and so forth. At any given point, for example, if we look at how a Black male may see a Black female as being, I guess, entitled, to being in a certain space, whereas the Black male may believe that you don't deserve to be in this space and you should really go over and above what any person typically should have to go, to earn their space. They would feel that, the male would feel that this Black female is being entitled. However, in another space where the Black male is the subject of these oppressive practices within, various subsects of the society, then, it then becomes, the almost like the boy who cried wolf, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's very important for us to appreciate this, that when you feel as though you suffer various injustices, at the hands of other groups of society, remember that should help you then resonate with or relate with those who are also being oppressed in other stratas of the society.
All right, we're going to continue shortly. It's time for your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines, ANC Chief Whip in the Mohakare municipality in the Free State, Pule Mahapane, has opened a criminal case against 3 senior municipal officials for alleged fraud, corruption and maladministration. Author of the book titled Farm Killings in South Africa, Dr. Neshama Brody, says the no white farmers are being targeted simply because of their race, and King Abdullah of Jordan will become the first Arab leader to meet US President Donald Trump later today. This after Trump announced his plan to take control of Gaza and resettle the Palestinian population in Jordan and Egypt. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Masandawana want to display their elite status with a graduation letter to the last 8. However, lower division team, Mpeni Home Defenders, are seeking to make history and join the league of giant killers. This is the Nedbank Cup Ross 16. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Mpeni Home Defenders on Sunday, 16 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
All right, we continue the conversation with Professor Musawenkosi Saurombe, the newly appointed ambassador for the commemoration of the 125th all right, let me rephrase that. For the 125th year commemoration of Charlotte Maxeke's life. That sounds a lot better. And she's joining us on the show for this hour. So, Prof, then let's talk about what the year is going to entail and the legacy of Charlotte Maxeke. Then you, of course, are going to be speaking about throughout the year.
Okay, so we are really looking forward to commemorating her 125th year. And when you consider what a milestone this is, but just by virtue of it being 125 years next year since she obtained her BSc degree and being the first, Black woman in the region, in Southern Africa to achieve that at a time when it wasn't even fashionable for women to be educated, but she pushed through those boundaries. If you look at everything about her, how she pushed through even political spaces that were only meant, for men. And I love the song that you played just before this interview started, which was addressing all of these aspects. And this event is meant to commemorate her as a pioneer, someone who believed in bringing people up. Her famous quote goes, do not kill that. It says, kill that spirit of self and do not live above your people. And if you can rise, bring someone with you. that was at the core of what Charlotte believed. And this is why, even as an institute, despite the fact that we push the agenda of empowering young girls, because historically they have been, disempowered and are only finding their spaces now. However, we're also, part of the movement of empowering the boy child as well, because what Mom Charlotte stood for wasn't necessarily empowering specifically the girl child, but empowering anyone who had been left behind within, the different subsects of society. And so we wouldn't want to do her legacy an injustice by then only empowering the girl child and leaving behind the boy child. Then we create an inverse inequality type of situation. And so we have, a legacy project, which is the Girls School of Excellence, that is aimed at nurturing young girls and harnessing their gifts so that they can be able to take their place at the global stage. Then, of course, beside this legacy project, we have many other initiatives that we're involved in the spaces of agriculture, social justice, and leading up to the event on the 20th of June 2026, we will be engaged in various initiatives, such as, very soon it'll be International Women's Day on the 8th of March, and we will be hosting a brunch at UNISA, hosting women ambassadors, so that we can have these conversations about what it means to be women in spaces of power. In April as well, we will have, a golf day, mother of all golf days, commemorating her birthday because she was born in April, and that will be on the 7th of April. Because we also appreciate that she was not only a figure who stood for education, who stood for, political, she had a strong political acumen as well, but she also was a true spiritual leader at heart. She was a Christian by religion, and she believed that, this helped strengthen even just simply the pillars and the foundations of what creates a good society. And so we will also be commemorating that in April with the church campaign at the AME church that she was a part of. And so there's so many initiatives that will be, that we will be participating in and hosting. And we ask that all of you, listening, and, if you could tell another person and they could tell the next person, would rally behind us, as we commemorate the legacy of Charlotte and who she was through these various initiatives. We also have dialogues as well between different generational segments, and we seek to gain, perspective from both younger and older generations, because it's important that we carry on, that continuity in the African context where knowledge has always been passed from the older to the younger generations. And now as well in the modern African context, there's now a space for younger people to also, kind of interrogate some of the belief systems of the older generations. And to be honest, if you look at it very carefully, this is how even the democracy of South Africa was born, by, intergenerational dialogue. And so those are, some of the events that we have going on. Please do check our social media and websites for more information regarding these various initiatives that we will be hosting. And also, please follow the countdown to June 20th, 2026.
Wonderful. Let's then also talk about what it is that you would want South Africans to know about Mama Ceka's legacy and who she was and what she represents for this nation.
I believe at the core of Mom Charlotte's legacy is espousing legacy ourselves as individuals. So each of us asking ourselves, what legacy am I leaving behind? Because while we look to her as an example and we rest on the laurels of a giant in her, it's important that each of us ask ourselves as individuals, as South Africans, what am I doing, to make my community, my society, my nation, my continent, and the world eventually a better place. And if you look at how, imagine for someone born in the late 1800s in 1871, she took her space even on the global stage. So having a mindset as even South Africans, as, you know, those of us on this side of the globe, understanding that we do also have a say. And without getting into all, you know, the political chaos that's going on in the world right now, especially coming from the global north, it should tell us as individuals how important it is for each of us to play our part. Otherwise, we then just become pawns in a greater scheme of something, you know, that's bigger than us as individuals. But I love the legacy that Charlotte left behind, that even though she was just one person, she believed that she could make a difference. And make a difference did she do absolutely phenomenally. And that's important for us to also then take up the baton that she left behind and carry on as individuals to build our individual legacy and ultimately leave a legacy for those who will come after us, just as Charlotte did for us.
There's, of course, so much power in being able to look back and see how others are doing it. So when we talk about, breaking boundaries or entering new frontiers, when we have examples of that, it really brings the possibility of others that are looking on so much closer, because now we have Musa Wenkosu who's done it. So it's not something that's, pie in the sky. It's actually a lot more real. And I wonder, Musa Wenkosu, for those who are pursuing careers in academia or who are facing the day-to-day challenges of getting degrees, getting qualifications, what would you share with them from your own experience to encourage them and to keep them going?
What I would share with them is make the most of every opportunity that life presents you with, because you never know where today's opportunity will leave you tomorrow. There's a quote which says, "Do not despise humble beginnings." The thing that you are reluctant to do today because you believe it's beneath you may be what will launch you into your future tomorrow. And so I will say to anyone listening right now, that find your trajectory and run with it. The path that you have been set on may not look like the next person. And if I could, if we had more time, I would go into how I ended up even in academia. That wasn't always what I had on my personal vision board. But like I said, looking for the opportunities. Sometimes we stare too much at the doors that are closed to us, that we don't see the other ones that are open. And so allowing, life to lead us, God to lead us into the trajectories that are specifically meant for us, I believe that is absolutely important. And I urge young and old people to do so. It's never too late as long as you have breath in your lungs. Maybe you've been chasing and pursuing the wrong things. Maybe you had a vision, a picture, for your life that hasn't materialized. Perhaps it could be because you have not looked at the other open doors around you, but have only focused on whatever doors may be closed before you.
And what does the future hold for you? I know that you are already a pioneer, but where to in terms of when you think about your contribution in academia, and I would imagine in other phases of your life, taking up this ambassadorship as well?
Yeah, so like I've said, and I try to follow my own advice, right? I'm at the point where I'm just pursuing every opportunity that comes my way and, making the most of every single one of those opportunities. Because like I said, I never really planned to be where I am now. I had a different picture of how my life should have or would have panned out. But looking back, I'm so grateful for where I am today. And so I trust, God, I trust the process that I will continue to be exactly where I need to be. So I'm surrendered, in terms of my future. Wherever I need to be, I believe I will be.
That's absolutely beautiful. Professor Busawenkosi Saurombe is the ambassador for the Charlotte Maxeke Institute as they commemorate 125 years of her life. And of course, if you want to know more about some of the events that they will be hosting in line with these commemorations, get in touch with the Charlotte Maxeke Institute and they'll be able to give you that information. Of course, you can also go onto their website, which is www.cmmi.org.za. That's www.cmmi.org.za. All right, on that note, it brings us to the end of the talking point for this Tuesday. The show is back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday. Is it Tuesday or is it Wednesday today? What day is it today? No, it's Tuesday, Lebo. It's not Wednesday. It's Tuesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Yeah, tomorrow is Wednesday. So I was right. The show is back with you again tomorrow morning between 9 and midday. Have yourselves a wonderful afternoon. Stay tuned to SFM for all your latest news, current affairs, and, of course, sport.
Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
I could be a girl who finds herself a knight in shining armor, but my financial status is horror. I owe everywhere. Do I then sit? Do I preempt what my situation is like? I mean, is it that important that we talk about our debts?
Bertha, it's really, really important, especially if you're going to go into a committed relationship where you potentially might move in together or you might get married. I think we know, and I think in a lot of ways, that financial issues are one of the biggest reasons why relationships break.
Queen Malobane is our Provincial General Manager at Metropolitan.
The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
In terms of the ANC's response to what Donald Trump said, a lot of your thoughts around the response has been less to Trump, but more to AfriForum. Why so?
Because we know, and I'm sure you also know, that they have traveled to the U.S. in particular to speak about this very issue that Donald Trump is responding to. That's not being the first time that they had done so. We are responding to them in the main because they are South African. We should be able to work with each other in finding solutions to the South African problem.
Lindiwe Zulu, the ANC National Executive Committee member.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Sheila Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of the book These Things Really Do Happen to Me by Kaya Dlang, read by Lerato Mvelase.
Lunch with Xolisa and William Shatner, a.k.a. Danny Crane, continues. He seemed to have a genuine interest in people and to be an amazing listener. When William Shatner listens to you, it is like he's listening with his whole body. He had razor focus on what I was saying to him, as if the only thing that mattered were the words coming out of my mouth. His eyes did not leave me when I was speaking. At one point, he called a waiter over and said, "Get me 3 of your most expensive cigars and whiskeys," which he followed up with, "Actually, if this was your place and money was not an issue, which cigar would you give me? Give me those cigars." Xolisa and I smiled. We were about to be treated. When I'd arrived, I was worried that we had no more than 30 minutes, but our great conversation lasted almost 3 hours. Eventually, William Shatner had to go back to his hotel room to meet his wife, pack his bags, and leave for the airport. He stood up, shook our hands, and thanked us for being interesting. Then he said, "All right, you fellows are paying." He left. Xolisa and I looked at each other. Payday was a week away. We were still low-level employees then, and this ninja had ordered some of the best whiskey and 3 of the most expensive cigars at the Saxon. I could see the panic in Xolisa's eyes. Were his eyes watering? Maybe my eyes were watering. There was a moment of silence, as we probably thought the same thing. How much was each cigar? We asked for the bill, but when it arrived, neither of us wanted to open it. The words, "most expensive cigars and whiskeys," ringing in our ears. After losing a game of rock, paper, scissors, I opened it and forced myself to look at the total. Luckily, we had just enough money between the 2 of us to pay for the bill. We didn't know how we would survive the rest of the month. Cigars, exorbitant. Whiskies, daylight robbery. 3 hours with William Shatner, priceless. Keeping my composure around Casper. The most awkward thing happened one day. I have a horrible habit. If someone says something, I will use what they say and turn it into a tune. Terribly, of course. For example, if someone says, "Will you be there?" I will start singing to the Michael Jackson tune, "Will you be there?" We were shooting a prank video for Amstel, South Africa. As marketing manager on the brand, I had to be there to supervise the shoot and make decisions. A huge Casper on Your Vest fan was going to come to a restaurant with his sister, who was in on the prank. The sister would encourage him to pick a song on the jukebox, knowing he would definitely choose Casper's song. Once he selected the song, the jukebox would open up, smoke coming out of it, and boom, the real Casper would walk out, mic in hand. Back in the control room, we were watching the rehearsals before our prankie and his sister arrived. One of my colleagues, Dimakatso Napiane, said, "I hope that waitress maintains her composure when she sees Casper." It was at that point that I started singing, "Composure, compo." I suddenly realized what I had done. Casper was right next to me. This was right in the middle of the alleged feud between AKA and Casper. There was a brief silence, but Casper laughed so much. Boy, was I embarrassed. I believe the children are the future. December in East London is a beautiful blur. The sun is out and bright, and there are bouts of humidity. The people are as happy as the sun. Many of us who live in big cities like Johannesburg, Durban, and Cape Town make a great trek back home from the 15th of December for what has been termed big days. That's being December holidays. Happiness overflows. Everyone is kind and generous. Those of us from Johannesburg noticed the familiar sounds of Xhosa everywhere once again. People who have driven from Johannesburg have also stopped at a Shell garage to fill up and buy a delicious shamrock pie. The bite welcomes you to the Eastern Cape on your way to East London. People swear by it. In December, many of these pies are eaten in the middle of night and early mornings, in garages, everywhere. As holidaymakers descend on the area, the pies vanish quickly. It was during one of these December holidays that I flew down to East London Airport to be picked up by my cousin, Xolisa Jiashana, my ever-present accomplice. He was already waiting outside when I got there. The airport had not yet been renovated, and you could park just outside arrivals. He had arrived in the city a few days before, and his mood was holiday. He wore a t-shirt, shades, and flip-flops. It was overcast, but humid. Optimism, perhaps even a bit of carefree mischievousness, filled the air. We greeted each other and put my bags in the boot of his car. As we closed the boot, a big car parked behind Xolisa's car. As we were about to drive off, the car behind us hooted, and out stepped a great friend of ours, who was also my neighbor in Johannesburg. Much excitement ensued. She was at the airport to pick up her sister, who was landing in the next 15 minutes, so we decided to wait with her. I started with a game Xolisa and I used to play, saying, "You know, Xolisa, I believe the children are the future. We should teach them and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside," Xolisa said with fervor. "Yes, give them a sense of pride," I responded. "To make it easier," Xolisa replied, uninterrupted. Our friend was standing there, silently listening intently to what we were saying. "And you know what?" I said. "What?" Xolisa asked. "Let the children's laughter remind us of how we used to be." Our friend suddenly turned and looked at us and said with great passion, "It's easy for you guys to say. For example, if you look at how we grew up, it wasn't that simple." Xolisa and I looked at each other, holding back laughter. I could not keep it in, and I burst out laughing so loud that the people in the airport turned to look. "Why are you guys laughing? I'm serious," she said, disheartened. I was literally on the airport floor. Xolisa was laughing uncontrollably, and she was still staring at us in confusion. Perhaps she wondered if we had smoked something of the green variety. I was laughing too hard to explain. My thoughts on relationships. 1. A relationship should mean freedom, not control. 2. There is no need to police each other. Nobody owns anybody. Even your parents don't own you. 3. Don't force or stay in a relationship because you are lonely. 4. If compromise is excessive and one-sided, that's really a recipe for a great relationship. 5. Stop believing in the delusion that a conflict-filled relationship is passion. It isn't. 6. If they make you feel like being in a relationship with you is a favor, leave. 7. Everyone has a past. When getting into a new relationship, the state of your current character should matter more than your past. 8. Don't allow yourself to be guilted into staying in a relationship you don't want to be in. 9. When you fight, don't focus on winning the argument at the cost of finding a solution. 10. Be in a healthy and loving relationship with yourself first. 11. Don't force permanence in a temporary situation. Sometimes people are meant to be in our lives for a season, and that's okay. 12. If you are constantly walking on eggshells in a relationship, it's time to reevaluate your relationship.
That was another episode of the book These Things Really Do Happen to Me, written by Kaya Dlanga, read by Lerato Mvelase. The book is available online and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursdays on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Lerato Mvelase, technical production Wiseman Manele, Nanda Khoza, and Tato Mapurum.
12 o'clock on Tuesday, the 11th of February 2025. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM, leading the conversation. I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour.
With regard to the behavior of the Republican Party in the US towards us, it's a radical change overnight. Why? I don't